Could you possibly rewind and come again?
What's going on, people? Level Up Media. So, in this episode of Unsung Artists, I'll be speaking about an R&B group from the 90s era known as Xscape. Now, Xscape were definitely recognized, but they were not as prominent as some of their contemporaries. Now, Xscape are a quartet, and the original members are Tamika Scott, Latosha Scott, Tamika Cottle, and Candy Barras, who currently features in the Real Housewives of Atlanta. They were formed in 1990 in Atlanta, Georgia, and in 1993 they released their debut album, which featured hit track Just Kicking It. They went on to release another 6 more albums, the most recent being in 2018 entitled I'm Here For It. Xscape were a solid group with their own character, style and persona. Now, I have not listened to all 7 of their albums, but I have listened to at least 3 of them. I would say that the first 2 albums overall are mid-tier, although they did have a few songs on there that were top tier, one of them being Just Kicking It. That one is a timeless classic, and they even had the remix, which was just as good as the original. But where Xscape really excelled was with their 3rd album entitled Traces of My Lipstick. Now, that album was closer to a masterpiece. In contrast to their first 2 albums, it sounds like they revamped their whole style, and their growth vocally and musically in general was definitely noticeable. They have several top tier quality tracks on that album. That album makes you look at Xscape in a whole new light, to the point where I would put Xscape in the top 3, certainly in the top 4 greatest female groups from the 90s era, which is quite a high rank considering there are about a solid 10 female R&B groups from the 90s who were all formidable and brought their A game. And the one thing that really stood out to me about Xscape on this album was their vocal prowess. They weren't just holding a tune, they were actually showcasing their vocal ability without doing too much or overpowering the music. It was done with just the right balance. So this album was released in 1998. After that, they went on to release another 4 albums. However, Xscape were very much under the radar at this point, especially with groups like SWV, TLC, Total, and 702 in the cut. Xscape were in the background, but they had just as much potential and quality as their contemporaries. However, Xscape remained unsung artists, and they were not as great as they could have been. But they were one of the original female groups that pioneered a sound that contributed to making the 90s an era of legendary music. But shout out to Xscape, a certified quartet that set the bar with quality music, style, and persona. So that's all from me, guys. Until the next time, I'll see you on the other side. Peace.